Nothing gives me more of a nostalgia rush than booting up an old copy of Kirby Air Ride and diving into City Trial. As a kid, this was everything to me. Being able to ride around on what I felt was a giant endless city on a little star as everyone's favorite pink puffball blew my mind as a 6-year-old. And even if it's a shell of an open world compared to today's standards, my nostalgia holds it up. It's one of those games I sunk dozens of hours into, but I think I've spent maybe 30 minutes playing the game's main racing mode. The idea behind Kirby Air Ride was to be a simpler and more stripped down alternative to racing games like Mario Kart Double Dash that would release just 4 months later. Air Ride used one button, the GameCube's big ass A button, and the control stick. For a game that went through development hell, it's a miracle that it was a commercial success, selling over 1.2 million copies worldwide. But maybe it's because of that simplicity that it found a market in my generation. Nintendo has constantly pushed against industry norms, whether it be focusing more in art direction than fidelity and frame rates, or creating an entire console around motion controls during the peak of shooters like Call of Duty or Halo, or leaning into the family market when real gamers just wanted a dark and gritty Zelda game. This is where a game like Kirby Air Ride shines. It's a game where the main mode I played had no objective and barely any mechanics. You don't even have to press any buttons, you just control with the stick and drive around the city that has nothing to do, and it's perfect. Playing split screen with your friends and coming up with little games and getting to the top of this little platforming yellow thing and finding the garage that has all the cars in the game in it was where all the fun was. If this released today, do I think it would be adored and revered? Absolutely not. But at a time when, for 8-year-olds at least, gaming was go from point A to point B and hit the flagpole, being able to fly around in an empty sandbox was everything. And even though Simpsons Hit and Run, a sandbox driving game that is superior in every way, launched a month before Air Ride, something about Kirby brings me back. Sure, it doesn't have the missions like Hit and Run, and it doesn't have the voice acting, and it doesn't have buildings you can go into, and it doesn't have NPCs, but it does have this little takeout box you can drive around in, and that's enough for me. Looking back at Kirby Air Ride, it's staggering how much content I missed as a kid. There's no way you knew you could play as Meta Knight in this thing, or King Dedede. I remember going over to a friend's house when I was a kid and seeing him play the top-down racing mode, which I had never seen in my entire life, and seeing white Kirby. And because we didn't have access to the internet like we do today, kids just lied about things that were in games for some reason. So people just said stuff like you could play as Master Hand in Smash Bros. Melee, and Luigi is in Super Mario 64, and you can catch Mew under a truck in Pokemon Red. So going back to Kirby Air Ride today in an era where we have everything in gaming is crazy. The ignorance we had as kids going into games and how important the choice of which game to get is something that we'll never get back. Once we picked a game, we didn't have a choice on whether to play it or not. It was going to be our new favorite game regardless of whether or not we actually liked it. So being able to play around an empty sandbox as a little pink guy with a few of your friends huddled together on the floor without a clear goal was exactly what I always wanted. Open worlds in gaming today often toe the line of being too cluttered with too many waypoints and pointless missions and being barren and boring. A game like Kirby Air Ride could have never released today, but it's one of those games that lives perfectly in the suspended animation of nostalgia. If you haven't gone back to play it recently, don't. But the nostalgia we have for a game like Kirby Air Ride and the GameCube generation as a whole is something that set the stage for not only what Nintendo would do next, but what gaming would look like today. Thanks so much for watching, hit the like button, and let me know down in the comments what your favorite Kirby Air Ride memory is. I'll see you in the next video.